I'm Charlie Albone, and welcome to episode 5 of season 2 of That's How We Grow, in partnership with STIHL Garden Power Tools. Healthy soil is vital for developing happy and thriving plants. Supporting this through sustainable gardening practices will encourage biodiversity through all levels of your garden, from the roots to the tips of your leaves. Now imagine taking on a big piece of land that's been cleared of its natural rainforest, is showing signs of significant erosion and looks bare. Then consider trying to make a living from this land. No doubt if you continue on this trajectory, the soil will have very little nutrients to support your efforts. Today's guests are Martin and Will Brook. They did just that, taking on Brookfarm in the 1980s in Byron Bay. Buying an old dairy farm, they went about converting it into an incredible example of working with nature to support a healthy environment whilst growing delicious macadamia nuts. What you see on the farm today is vastly different to what they started with. It's going to be a great chat with Martin and Will about how they rehabilitated the land, planting countless macadamia trees, supporting the rainforest and natural wildlife, and building an amazing business through all of this. It's time we get cracking with Martin and Will. Martin and Will Brook from Brookfarm, welcome to That's How We Grow. How are you guys?
Really well.
Yeah, really well, Charlie.
So how on earth do you start macadamia farming? Tell me your story.
In 1988, us and another family, the Bradleys, decided that it was time for a sea change. And we actually decided that Byron Bay, and remember this was quite early on, it's not the Byron Bay of today, that Byron Bay was the place we would take our young families and settle. I used to be in the film and TV business, and a friend of ours was, I think he was producing, Mission Impossible 2 up on the Gold Coast. And he was sent off, to look for land. And he actually, went away for a weekend, found this block of land on top of a hill overlooking Byron Bay. And then the auction happened and no one turned up to the auction. So we were the proud owners of 98 acres, 36 hectares of land in a very sad, rundown state. And then we got a weeds notice from the council. So we decided we had to do something about, the land. Mm-hmm. We cleared it. We planted 4,500 macadamia trees, but we also planted 36,000 native trees, mostly subtropical rainforest.
If you say it in one sentence, it sounds nice and easy that we planted macadamia trees and regenerated rainforest. But I think one of the things that Mum and Dad are really good at was asking for advice. Mm-hmm. And knowing, if I'm in film and TV and in dentistry, that growing things isn't my strong suit as yet. Talking to the local farmers about what crop should we put in. I remember, or they've talked about, was it going to be farm stays or pecans or cattle
well, we're looking at coffee as well.
Coffee, yeah. And it's the macadamia was really popular as the Hawaiian nut back then, but not the native Australian rainforest tree that it really is. And I think that's something that caught their eye. And when they say, we planted 36,000, I think almost up to 45,000 rainforest trees now, and those macadamias, that was our life my youth was every school holidays. We were in Melbourne at the time, was travelling up to the macadamia farm, planting trees, picking up rocks, back down, film and TV, dentistry, back up, farming, back down, and then we'd have a farm manager in between as well. There's some awesome before and after photos on the website.
I've seen the pictures on your website. So the way you nonchalantly say, we planted some trees and a bit of a rainforest is ridiculous. Like when you first bought the property, there was nothing there. It was really degraded, wasn't it?
It was incredibly degraded. It was eroded. It was full of a weed tree, camphor laurel, lantana, rocks, and lots of boulders.
How do you replant a rainforest? I mean, obviously you've got to get rid of the weeds. Do you improve the soil? Where do you get the plants from? Are they small seedlings that you plant? Like, what's the process?
Well, in those days there were very few nurseries. I mean, today it's a different sort of deal. But we again, through this amazing gentleman we met, we were put on to a very, very good subtropical rainforest nursery. So what you've got to do basically is that you've got to get rid of the weeds to begin with. You then purchase trees that are pretty small. Obviously, you've got to dig the holes. You then use a bit of fertilizer, but the important thing is to cover them with straw, and if you can as well, with wood chip, because the wood chip will actually break down and help the growth of those trees. Mm. And then in the old days, and now it's changed completely, you had this concept of planting the fastest growing pioneer tree in the middle, then a middle story tree as the second circle, and the third circle would be the trees that took longer to grow. Now, of course, all of that's gone out the window. You can plant anything, anywhere, apart from in those wet areas where you have specific trees that like, wet soils.
It seems like such a crazy, impossible thing to do. The before and afters are so drastic. Was there ever a moment when you were doing the work and you thought, this is all too much, or did you have the vision for it?
There's an aspect of it which is momentum. I mean, the two projects, the macadamias and the rainforest, and then eventually the Brookfarm, the business side, almost happened quite naturally. So the macadamias and the rainforest were almost done as two completely separate projects. And there's like a particular passion for the macadamia and a passion for this rainforest regeneration and regenerating the big scrub, because it seemed like the right thing to do with that piece of land. And there was a lot of work involved. But what we saw is the significant impact, positive impact that regenerating the rainforest had on the macadamia farm was quite stunning, and has really just created the bedrock for everything that we do as a family now. Like, we used to do all the standard macadamia farming things, and that's why I say it was almost two separate. We bait for rats, we do all the normal spraying. This is back early 90s. Once the rainforest was at a mature stage, we got this advice saying, well, you know what, you've probably got a significant amount of bird life going on here. Mm-hmm. Why don't you, instead of baiting for these rats, just take the baits out and see what happens. And our rat damage went from like high, almost 10% down to extremely low single digits, because we weren't inadvertently killing off the natural pest managers, your barn owls, your owls in general, bird life, snakes, all of that type of stuff. And so the amount of inputs that are going into the farm in terms of poisons go down. We also had increased pollination, because we're bringing all this other flora to the area, and just creating an environment that the macadamia is the macadamia is a rainforest tree. That's where it's supposed to be. And so those concepts we then take into the I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but taking into the muesli granola side of things. It's like, we don't do things just to be green or whatever. We do things because they just make sense. Being more sustainable has a better impact on our bottom line, which is the way that things should be.
That's the way it should be. And I mean, that is an amazing thing to happen. It's incredible that it not only is better for the environment, but it's better for the bottom line as well. It's like the perfect situation, isn't it?
Yeah, and you get better quality products to all. Everything in between.
So when you started growing the macadamias, how was setting that project up different to the rainforest? Was there more soil preparation? Was there larger trees? So how did that work?
A lot more soil preparation. The planting of the trees, 4x8, important where you actually planted them in terms of north-south direction. Mm-hmm. But in the early days, we really didn't have, as Will says, there was a traditional way of farming, and I think about it now, and I cringe when the concept of sort of calendar spraying would happen. Regardless of what nasty bugs were out there, you sprayed
we've all done things that make us cringe, don't worry.
And we were one of the very first, and I was overjoyed. The brilliant scientist up in Queensland, we had a huge problem with a horrible bug called a nut borer, And he came out with this solution whereby we would put out, and every year we do it, about 60,000 trichogramma wasp eggs. The eggs become into this wasp. The nut borer comes along, lays an egg on the nut. Within 30 seconds, the trichogramma wasp will come and inject the egg, kill it. We have no nut borer problem.
That's amazing. So where do you get them from?
Well, we get them from a guy who breeds them up for us in Queensland. And
they come in the post?
They come in the post.
It freaks out the postman. He's got a box of wasps.
Yeah. He was horrified the first time, the Postmaster General of Bangalore, and he said, "What do you got there, Brookie?" I said, "I've got 50,000 trichogramma wasps. I don't think you should be putting that through the post." Anyway, they take about 3 years before they hatch out. So we're doing the same with spotting bug, which is also a real issue. And we're using anistate, which is bred up in Chinese silkworm. So all the time we're endeavoring to work with nature, not against it. We've also just put 20 different boxes all around the place in our forest, but also around the macadamias in terms of attracting microbats, different size, sort of birds, owls, sugar gliders. All these things are incredibly important in terms of pollination and issues, but also, bringing the bird life back and giving them a proper home.
Yeah. So how is the macadamia pollinated?
The macadamia is pollinated. Well, we all thought it was to do with, it was all to do with sugar bees, but not sugar bees, sorry, the honeybees.
European bees. Yeah.
But in fact, what we're finding is that insects play a very important role as well as bees. And we're now quite big into the native bees, the Cabinari bees. So
are they the stingless ones? The tiny ones? Yeah.
Cute little guys.
Yeah, they
very
are.
Cute.
Very girls.
Very small. And they make the most beautiful, it's called sugarbags honey. It's incredibly good for you, but tastes delicious.
Wow. What's a normal week or a normal day look like on the farm as far as, is there set things you have to do as far as soil improving, pest management, all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, it's very cyclic. We, as you probably know, have had the most challenging 2 years. And anyone who says that man-made climate change is a bit for fast wants to come and live where we do, because the impacts of rain and continuous rain over quite a long period of time, is certainly created some huge challenges, particularly in the macadamia industry, but not just the macadamias. In the sugar industry, and all crops are affected. So it's in a sense climate change. We've got to have a bit of a rethink, I think.
Yeah. You guys are real beacons for sustainability. How could the home gardener learn from what you've done? Obviously, people can't plant a rainforest in their back garden. They might have one macadamia tree. What kind of tips can you give the home gardener?
Well, the interesting thing is, I'm very closely involved in basically saving what's left of this amazing rainforest that used to be. But, there are so many subtropical rainforest trees and plants that in fact will work in southern climes. And you can, in fact, plant a beautiful garden with native subtropical plants. But it's basically kind of a bit like our story in a way. It's working out what works and what doesn't, but also having a really tuned in to your environment and to your climate, and trial and error a bit. But I think there are things that you can take from the big scale that we've done into a garden.
Yeah, I would just say part of that, from my point of view, looking back, is that some of that advice, particularly if you're looking at something like if you're in a subtropical area or it's somewhere that can that can have rainforests, then someone that knows a little bit about that type of flora is always, that would be my number one thing. And
so seek some knowledge.
Just seek a bit of knowledge and also a bit of patience, but not too much. Like you can come to the farm. Anyone can come to the farm. We've actually, just as our other business is Cape Byron Distillery, and we do rainforest tours through the farm. And you can see, like, you can see the photos from our website and what it is now. That's less than a generation to do a complete turnaround.
Yeah,
like a 100% turnaround from barren camphor laurel, lantana, privet covered land to a fully functioning, now self-sustaining rainforest. So that's quite heartening. It's like, it's good to give people confidence, I guess, that it's
absolutely.
not
I mean, patience is the biggest thing that kills a lot of gardeners, but to see the change that you guys have gone through in such a short period really gives people hope.
Yeah, and it's not impossible. I mean, there's plenty of times I know that we've made mistakes in our plantings and done them different ways and put different varieties together. Like that happens.
That's gardening.
Despite all of that, we have this fully functioning, amazing rainforest that I love. My favorite thing is bringing other people to the rainforest because you can feel something special there. There's something old and ancient and impactful about walking into a rainforest that you can see in people's faces. That that's the thing, is it's patience. And
so are you guys keen gardeners, or is the farm enough, and do you just head off to the rainforest when you want your sort of dose of greenery?
Yeah, really, I know it sounds bizarre. When I was having a bad muesli there, I'd finish with the muesli and I'd find myself walking down into that rainforest, to get my head back in order again. There's something incredibly satisfying about that environment. But, the other thing is, with the story of a beautiful garden, obviously with the right stuff in the ground, is that it's what it does in terms of bringing birds into that environment. It is just amazing. But I wouldn't say we're great gardeners.
They're much stronger on a tree than they are on the strawberries, flowers, things like that. They don't go so well in the Brook family home.
No.
Food trees, it's like we're very food motivated. So we've had like bays and avocados and lemons and oranges, those things, they'll go well. They'll get the right love because, that's closely related to the dinner table or the breakfast table. I think that's what motivates us.
And I had a mother who used to work on the notion. I come from Devon originally, and it's, food is very important down there.
Yes.
And, she would say, if it moves, feed it. You know what I mean?
Yes. So how do you tread lightly on the farm when you obviously need large machinery to farm the macadamias, for all your pruning and stuff like that? How do you approach that?
That's a very good question, because again, we're learning more and more about soil compaction and how,
especially with the rain. Yeah, absolutely.
So now there are different breed of kind of machinery out there, which is, for instance, our harvester, our harvester tractor is really low impact and much, much lighter. You're not seeing these great big tractors anymore on farms, where you might in a few, but it's becoming less and less. And we try and keep off the interrow as much as possible.
Right.
So we let the grass grow. It doesn't look like Bowling Greens, but we don't want it to look like Bowling Greens. Because we know those fibrous roots, the more you go up and down in heavy machinery, the more compacted it becomes. So we try and stay off it as much as we can.
And you'll see that on our farm compared to some other macadamia farms where it's a pretty barren, red dirt.
Yes.
Good, nice, good red dirt. You can see that dirt. You're really lacking that sun harvesting concept with many other farms. So I think even having that grass covering really assists us. I'm sure helped us in the rain period because we had no erosion, we had none of those issues. That if we didn't have that concept,
because grass, of course, that's the idea. You want to get the grass growing right up to the base of the trees. Is that and our farm in areas is pretty steep, and the amount of rain we actually get, that grass will slow it down. Will really, really reduce the impact of erosion.
Yeah, it helps to bind the soil together with the roots, doesn't it? Yeah,
absolutely. It's an old adage. They say it's oil in the soil, and it's so critically important to get that right.
Yes, you mentioned that you mulched quite heavily as well. Did you find during the rains that would, if you've got steep ground, just wash away, or do you just mulch where it's a bit flatter?
Well, we did get. We had such huge amounts of rain. We did. We did get a bit of erosion, but the work that we've done in terms of organic chicken litter, the compost, when branches, when we have to prune or when branches fall off trees, high winds, we always sort of chop them up and we put that back under the tree. And year after year after year, that is building up and building up and building up. And, when we have these dramatic weather events, it really does help. It really does help hold that soil.
Yes. So when you're mulching up your clippings and bits and pieces like that, do you put them straight on the ground or do you age them so they don't suck the nitrogen?
We leave them for a bit.
Yeah.
We do leave them for a bit, and we'll mix the chip with other things as well.
Is that how you got the soil back? Because from what I understand, when you first got the property, there was hardly any soil. So by mulching a lot, that kind of creates some soil, or did you have to do? Yeah, so that's how you did it. Yeah, wow.
Absolutely, because you want to create that microbiological that breakdown. I get so excited when I see fungi around the place,
Yeah.
And it's not just in the rainforest now, and that's a sign that your rainforest is really beginning to advance, but also out in the field.
Yeah. So I guess one last question is the recipe for the muesli a secret, or is it out there, or does it just come down to good quality ingredients?
Well, yes, it is a secret.
Okay.
We're control freaks is what I would say. So we're a little bit unique in our industry in that we create all our own recipes, and we're a family business. We make everything ourselves. We don't send it off to someone else to get contract packed. And so we control our own quality, and that's and then the same with the recipe side of things. That's our special little piece. We make part of the reason it's so delicious is it's quite complex. It's a lot of there's like 16 ingredients in most of our products. So I would say it's challenging to copy, and we like it that way. And
mysterious, I like it.
It's very, very mysterious. It's not rocket science, but I don't know, you got to put a lot of love into it to get what we get out in the end.
Yeah. Well, you guys are proof that sustainable practices are the way forward. They are, it's amazing what you guys are doing as far as regeneration and the produce you're creating, and the fact that it is increasing your bottom line is just even better. It's just proof for so many other people to give it a go.
Yeah, thanks, mate.
Yeah, thank you very much.
It is time for some community questions, and we've got plenty of questions to fire through today. So let's start with Ruby in Sydney. Hi, Charlie. I hope you can help me rescue my lawn. How can I fix my lawn that's turned into mostly weeds? Any help will be appreciated. Well, I can guarantee the only reason you've got weeds in your lawn is because it's too compacted. So you'll need to get an aerator and a scarifier onto it as soon as possible, and then fill in those holes with a coarse sand so they don't collapse on themselves. Try and get on top of the weeds, hand weed out as much as you can, but then give it a good fertilise and it should come good. Next up, we've got Lewis asking, I've recently moved into an apartment and I'd like to add some greenery to the place. I'm a novice gardener. What plants do you recommend and what ones can I start with? Well, if you're looking at indoor plants, you can't really go wrong with Zanzibar gem, devil's ivy, and a philodendron. If you're looking at putting some plants on a balcony, it's most likely hot and dry, so maybe try some succulents. And the next question is a succulent question at that. Roxy in Sydney is asking, can I revive a dying succulent? Any tips to help these sick plants? Now, the one thing that's probably killing your succulents is poor drainage. So succulents can actually take quite a lot of water, but if it sits around their roots, they really don't like it and they show the effects. So just plant them into straight sand and keep the water up to them and they will be just fine. Up next, Ben is asking, hi Charlie, can you please settle a bet between my girlfriend and myself? I sing to my plants, encouraging them to grow faster. My girlfriend thinks I'm nuts for doing this. Does singing to your plants help them grow? I hope so. Well, Ben, I think you're nuts. No, to be honest, I don't do it to my plants, but there is research that shows if you play music or sing to your plants, they grow stronger. I don't know how they've tested this. I can't substantiate it, but apparently it works. I don't know. Go figure. Okay, so the final question for today is from Anthony. Hey Charlie, my lawn is struggling and I'm looking to reseed it. What is the best time of year to do this? Do you have a particular type of grass seed you recommend? Well, actually, I don't recommend reseeding your grass. You can only use cool climate grasses when you go to seed them. Warmer climate grasses really need to be done by stolons. I haven't had much success. The birds come in, they take the seed. It's very depressing. I think it's much better to roll out turf. It's done quickly and you can establish it quickly and have a better finish. It does cost a little more money. So if you're trying to save $1, maybe get something like Sir Walter, cut it into strips and plant that out. Keep on top of the weeds as they pop up and it should fill in no time. Do you have a gardening question you'd like me to answer? Well, send an email to charlie@stihl.com.au and I'll try and answer them in 2 weeks on our next episode. The work Brookfarm has undertaken is incredible. Thanks again to Martin and Will for their time. It was so interesting talking to them, the way they work with nature and not against it. They're living proof that sustainable practices can work effectively, efficiently, and if you're worried about the bottom dollar, they can make more money for you as well. It's really interesting the way that they rehab the soil, and they say it isn't impossible, you just need a little bit of patience, and that will pay a dividend. Well, thanks for listening to That's How We Grow in partnership with STIHL Garden Power Tools. Need the tools to take on any garden challenge? Go to the STIHL website or head to your local STIHL dealer today. There are over 600 local STIHL dealers across Australia, and you can easily find your local dealer on the STIHL website. Follow STIHL on Instagram at stihl_au, and you can follow me on Instagram as well, Charlie_Albone. On our next episode, we've got my Better Homes and Gardens colleague, Joanna Griggs. I'd like to say she's a tough taskmaster on Better Homes and Gardens, but actually she's not. She really is a lovely person and a keen gardener herself. Joanna's going to be sharing her tips on how to get your family and friends involved in the garden because she's inspired so many herself. This episode will be out in 2 weeks' time. Don't forget to check out the STIHL blog with plenty of great gardening advice as well as my key seasonal tips and tricks. Be sure to go to blog.stihl.com.au. I'm Charlie Albone. Thanks for listening. Until next time, goodbye.